Hello, everybody. I've been asked to say a few words about Brexit, and so I just start with the time we actually left. The UK left the European Union on the 31st of January in 2020, and that was when the transition period started. And the transition period, as you probably know, actually finished on the 31st of December 2020. So the full force of the changes that took place only started really at the beginning of January this year. The withdrawal agreement was reached by Boris Johnson's government just before the end of January 2020. And it covered three main areas. So the first area was the financial agreement, where it was decided how much money the UK had to pay to the EU. And then there was the question of citizens' rights. So the idea was that British citizens living in Europe and European citizens living in the UK who had used their treaty rights under freedom of movement to live and work in another country in the EU, they would be able to retain the same rights. In fact, that sort of worked out more or less, but it's involved an awful lot of bureaucracy, and lots of people are still having problems. And there are many things that have become a lot more difficult. But in general, people are still allowed to carry on with their lives more or less as normal, although, as I say, there are lots of details that we could go into, but I don't think we have time here. And the other question, of course, was the Irish question, where basically, because Northern Ireland was part of the United Kingdom, but they didn't want to put a border between Northern Ireland and Ireland because, well, I think we all know the history of the wars and how the European Union, belonging to the European Union, had meant that there was peace in Ireland after many, many years of war. So it was very important not to have a border in Ireland, and so they put the border in the Irish Sea, so that from the beginning of this year, people who are or lorries who are traveling with goods from say from England or from Scotland to Northern Ireland have to go through passport controls and have to show all sorts of documents, maybe not passports, but all sorts of documents. And that's causing huge problems. So the people in Northern Ireland are getting very angry about that. And there are all sorts of other problems about trade, because although a trade deal was agreed just before December, the end of December, just before the transition period ended, it led to all sorts of confusion, because people really didn't know exactly how the system would work. And in the end, it seems that it's very, very complicated. So even though people aren't having to pay tariffs on most goods, there's an extraordinary amount of paperwork, and a lot of businesses seem to be going, well, giving up trading basically with the EU. Obviously, there's a question of the food which is supplied to the UK, fresh food going through the Channel Tunnel, which is now getting stuck in queues, but also exports from the UK into Europe. It's very confusing. You can read about some of the issues that people are having. So if you want to have a look, one of the best people to read about trade is a guy called Michael M on Twitter, and you could follow him at Viva MJM. So that's VIVA MJM. He knows a lot about haulage, about trade, etc. Then there's an interesting story about Cheshire cheese. If you look up Cheshire cheese, you can find lots of stories about this guy who is no longer able to send his wonderful cheese to his clients in Europe. And then the wine trade has been heavily affected. You can read about the problems that people are having importing wine. There's a Twitter feed there. It's at Daniel Lambert 29. That's DANIEL LAMBERT 29. So yes, so there are lots and lots of problems for businesses. So with all of these problems, the UK press seems to have decided more or less to try and make out that a lot of the fault of these changes is actually due to the EU. Well, these are simply rules that the EU applies with any other third country, but unfortunately the UK isn't used to being a third country, and now they find that they are a third country and that they don't actually like the rules that they're having to apply. So they're trying to find a way of putting the blame on the EU. So there was an article in the Daily Telegraph the other day which actually said that that Brexit was Angela Merkel's fault. I don't know how they worked that out, but anyway, it is a problem because. And then the other thing is, I suppose you heard about the problems with the vaccine, because the UK has actually been a lot quicker than the EU in getting the vaccine for COVID-19 produced and distributed. And it seems that AstraZeneca, which is the company that is providing the Oxford vaccine, which had a factory in Belgium, had some problems with the factory in Belgium. And so the European Union expected that AstraZeneca would fulfill its contract by sending shipments of the vaccine from the UK to the EU in line with their contractual agreements. Well, obviously AstraZeneca didn't want to do that, and I don't know whether there was a question that they'd taken too many orders, or I don't know quite what the problem was, but in the end, I think the bureaucrats in the European Commission decided to invoke Article 16, which is part of the Withdrawal Agreement, because the EU thought that Britain was trying to find a back door to get vaccines into the country. So they threatened to put in place this Article 16. But in the end, I mean, they didn't do it. And within 4 or 5 hours, Ursula von der Leyen said, well, we're not going to do that. She spoke to the Irish Prime Minister, I'm not sure, I can't say the name, but anyway, Taoiseach, I think. He, because he was very angry when he heard about this idea. But I mean, basically, I think it was a bureaucratic mistake, and the EU withdrew this threat within very few hours. But the UK government went crazy and is really making a lot of meat out of this. So now they're saying that they're going to break this agreement because obviously it's the border between the UK and Ireland is creating huge problems for everybody.